There comes a moment when you realize that the way you think about your life is far more powerful than the circumstances themselves. You can be in the middle of financial struggle, heartbreak, or failure, yet the narrative inside your head determines whether you stay down or rise again. Life doesn't hand out victories to the strongest or smartest. It rewards those who master the inner dialogue that shapes every choice they make. When you understand this, you stop being a victim of your environment and start becoming the author of your destiny. Think about it. Two people go through the exact same challenge. One feels crushed, hopeless, and stuck. The other sees the same storm as an opportunity to grow, to strengthen their resolve, to discover what they are truly made of. The difference is not luck, it's not talent, it's not external support. It's the way they think. It's the meaning they attach to the situation, and meaning is everything. If you assign a meaning of defeat, your story ends there. But if you assign a meaning of growth, your life takes on a completely different trajectory. Most people walk through life thinking incorrectly. They believe that the problem is their lack of resources, their lack of opportunity, their lack of support. But the truth is that the greatest resource they have is the ability to direct their thoughts. Correct thinking doesn't mean living in denial. It doesn't mean ignoring pain, challenges, or setbacks. It means choosing to interpret them in a way that fuels you instead of drains you. It's deciding that even if the world says you're finished, you're just getting started. The danger of wrong thinking is that it becomes a silent enemy. You don't even realize it's sabotaging you. You wake up thinking about what could go wrong, replaying old failures, doubting your worth, and questioning your path. Every thought becomes a weight on your shoulders, and eventually, you can't see beyond your limitations. But correct thinking lifts you. It doesn't erase reality. It empowers you to navigate it with strength, courage, and clarity. When you train your mind to see possibility, you awaken the part of yourself that has been waiting to be unleashed. Your thoughts are not just ideas floating in your head. They're instructions to your brain, commands to your body, blueprints for your actions. When you think fear, your body tightens, your breathing shallows, your decisions shrink. When you think confidence, your posture rises, your voice strengthens, your vision expands. Every single thought you entertain sends a ripple effect into your physiology, your emotions, and ultimately, your life results. That's how powerful correct thinking is. It literally reshapes your reality from the inside out. The stories you tell yourself about who you are define what's possible for you. If you say, "I'm not enough," you'll find proof everywhere you look. If you say, "I am unstoppable," you'll find evidence of that too. The mind is always searching for confirmation of your dominant thoughts. It's like a heat-seeking missile. It will lock on to whatever belief you program it with. That's why it's critical to program it with stories of empowerment, resilience, and vision instead of doubt, fear, and limitation. Correct thinking requires awareness. You must first notice the words you use with yourself. Do you say, "I'm tired, I can't handle this, nothing ever works out for me"? Or do you say, "This is tough, but I'm tougher and I'll find a way"? The words you choose are not random. They sculpt your reality. They are either chains that hold you back or wings that help you fly. The decision is yours, and it starts with a shift in thinking. When you think correctly, setbacks become setups, failure becomes feedback. Challenges become training grounds. What once looked like an obstacle now looks like an opportunity. This is not just positive thinking, it's powerful thinking. Positive thinking tries to cover reality with nice words. Correct thinking transforms reality by giving it empowering meaning. That's the difference between hoping for a better future and creating one. Consider for a moment that every single breakthrough in history started with a thought. The airplane was once just a thought. The internet was once just a thought. Every invention, every business, every movement began in the mind of someone who chose to think differently. If thoughts could birth such transformations for the world, imagine what the right thoughts could birth for your life. Imagine the relationships you could build, the wealth you could create, the joy you could experience simply by deciding to think correctly about what is possible for you. Wrong thinking makes you a prisoner of your past. Correct thinking sets you free to design your future. Wrong thinking makes you replay mistakes until you drown in regret. Correct thinking uses mistakes as stepping stones toward wisdom and strength. Wrong thinking tells you that you're powerless. Correct thinking reminds you that you've always been powerful. It just needed to be awakened. Correct thinking is not about avoiding struggle. It's about transforming struggle into fuel. It's about saying, this storm will not sink me, it will shape me. It's about saying, this rejection does not define me, it refines me. It's about saying, this challenge is not my end, it's my evolution. That is the essence of thinking correctly. It is the mastery of perspective, and perspective is everything. You don't need permission to think correctly. You don't need the world to approve before you choose empowering thoughts. You don't even need perfect conditions. You can be in the middle of chaos and still think correctly. In fact, it is in the middle of chaos that correct thinking becomes most powerful because it gives you strength when others give up. It gives you vision when others lose sight, and it gives you resilience when others collapse. This shift in thinking doesn't happen overnight. It takes awareness, practice, and consistency. But every time you catch yourself spiraling into wrong thoughts and redirect yourself toward empowering ones, you build strength. Over time, correct thinking becomes your default. You begin to automatically interpret challenges as opportunities, setbacks as setups, endings as beginnings. That's when you know you've truly mastered the art of thinking correctly. And here's the truth, your reality will always reflect the way you think, not immediately, not instantly, but inevitably. If you think correctly long enough, your world will begin to look like the thoughts you've been carrying inside. The people you attract, the opportunities you see, the actions you take will all align with the dominant thoughts that live in your mind. That's the secret to shaping your reality. It all starts with the way you think. If you want to learn how to think correctly, you must understand one truth: the mind is a muscle. Just like your body won't grow strong without consistent exercise, your mind won't grow sharp, disciplined, and resilient unless you train it daily. Too many people believe their thoughts are fixed, that the way they think is simply who they are. That's not true. The patterns you live by were learned, and what's learned can always be unlearned and replaced. When you see your mind as a muscle, you realize that every thought is either strengthening you or weakening you. The choice of training is always in your hands. Think about physical training. You don't go to the gym one day, lift a weight, and expect to be strong forever. No, strength is built through repetition, through consistency, through challenging the muscle so it grows. The same is true with thinking. Correct thinking is built when you repeatedly catch yourself slipping into negative, fearful, or limiting thoughts and replace them with powerful, purposeful, and empowering ones. One thought won't change your life, but training your thoughts every day will rewire your mind entirely. Most people are not out of shape physically because of one meal. They're out of shape because of years of poor choices. The same is true mentally. People don't stay stuck because of one bad thought. They stay stuck because they allow the same disempowering thoughts to run like a broken record in their minds. The repetition of weakness creates a weak mind, but repetition of strength creates an unshakable one. And when your mind is unshakable, no obstacle can stop you. Training your mind begins with awareness. If you don't know what you're thinking, you'll never be able to change it. Most people live unconsciously, letting their mind run wild like an untamed animal. They wake up and immediately allow fear, doubt, and negativity to dictate their day. Training means grabbing hold of that wild animal, guiding it, focusing it, and teaching it to serve you instead of sabotage you. That's where discipline comes in. It's not just about pushing through hard work. It's about pushing your mind to stay aligned with the thoughts that empower you. You must understand that your mind is like fertile soil. Whatever seeds you plant will grow. If you plant seeds of worry, you'll harvest stress. If you plant seeds of gratitude, you'll harvest joy. If you plant seeds of possibility, you'll harvest opportunity. Training your mind is about deliberately planting the right seeds every single day. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can control what you allow to take root in your mind. And when you take control of that, your harvest will change. Training also requires you to push beyond comfort. Just like muscles grow when you push them past their limits, your mind grows when you challenge it to think bigger, to see possibility where others see problems, to stay calm in the middle of chaos, to focus when distractions are screaming for your attention. If you only think within the limits of your comfort zone, your mental muscle will never expand. Correct thinking is forged in the moments when it's easier to give up, but you choose to think differently. One of the most powerful ways to train your mind is to replace limiting beliefs with empowering ones. A limiting belief is like a weight tied to your ankle. It keeps you from running freely. The more you allow those beliefs to stay, the heavier you feel. But the moment you challenge them, the moment you say, "That's not true for me anymore," you cut the weight loose. Then you replace it with a belief that fuels you. I can, I will, I must. Over time, this shift becomes automatic, and your mind begins to default to empowerment instead of doubt. Another part of training your mind is feeding it with the right input. You wouldn't eat junk food every day and expect to feel energized and healthy. Yet people feed their minds with negativity, toxic conversations, and endless distractions, then wonder why they feel drained and powerless. If you want a strong mind, you must fuel it with powerful content, uplifting voices, inspiring stories, and empowering ideas. The input you allow into your mind determines the output you experience in your life. Gratitude is one of the greatest exercises for mental strength. Every time you practice gratitude, you train your brain to focus on abundance instead of scarcity. You train it to see what's working instead of what's broken. Gratitude doesn't erase challenges. It simply puts them in perspective. When your mind is conditioned to look for blessings, you create emotional resilience. You stop being shaken by small problems because your focus is anchored in what's already good. That is mental training at its highest level. Discipline is the heartbeat of mental training. You don't train your mind once in a while. You train it every day. You wake up and decide what you will focus on, how you will interpret the events around you, and what meaning you will assign. Discipline means catching yourself when you slip, when old patterns creep back in, when fear whispers in your ear. Instead of surrendering to them, you take control. Over time, that discipline becomes identity. You no longer have to force yourself to think correctly. It becomes who you are. When you've trained your mind like a muscle, you begin to notice that things which used to break you no longer affect you the same way. The rejection that once crushed your confidence now fuels your determination. The setback that once stopped you now simply redirects you. The fear that once paralyzed you now excites you because it means growth is near. That's the transformation that comes from consistent training. The same way lifting weights makes the body unshakable, training your thoughts makes your mind unstoppable. The beautiful part of training your mind is that it compounds. Every day you strengthen it, it grows exponentially. You build momentum. You start to think differently not only in big moments but in the small ones too. You make better decisions, you respond instead of react. You choose faith over fear, vision over distraction, strength over weakness. And as your mental training compounds, your life begins to shift in ways you could never imagine before. Correct thinking doesn't just happen when you feel inspired. It happens when you choose it again and again, especially when you don't feel like it. The same way you don't only go to the gym when you feel motivated, you don't only train your mind when life is easy. The real training happens when life feels heavy. That's where growth happens. That's where resilience is built. That's where correct thinking becomes hardwired into your being. Your mind, when trained correctly, becomes your greatest ally. It becomes the voice that pushes you forward when you want to stop, the guide that helps you see solutions when others only see problems, the strength that carries you when your body wants to quit. A strong mind doesn't eliminate challenges. It ensures that no challenge can eliminate you. That is why training your mind like a muscle is the foundation of learning to think correctly. And remember, the mind will always reflect the way you train it. If you neglect it, it weakens. If you feed it junk, it slows. If you discipline it, challenge it, strengthen it, it becomes a force of nature that nothing can stop. The question is not whether your mind will be trained. It's whether you will train it deliberately or let the world train it for you. Correct thinking is not just about what happens inside your head. It's about the actions that follow. You see, thoughts don't exist in isolation. They are the seeds of behavior. Every action you take, every choice you make, every path you walk begins first as a thought. And when you think correctly, your actions naturally align with your vision. On the other hand, when your thoughts are clouded with fear, doubt, or weakness, your actions will reflect hesitation, avoidance, or sabotage. The direction of your life is shaped not by chance, but by the consistent pattern of thought leading to consistent patterns of action. Think about the last time you hesitated. Maybe you had a dream you wanted to pursue, an opportunity you wanted to grab, a conversation you needed to have, but you didn't act. Why? It wasn't because you didn't know what to do. It wasn't because you lacked the ability. It was because your thoughts created uncertainty. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if it doesn't work out? Those thoughts became chains around your actions. On the other hand, when you thought, "This is my moment, I will figure it out, I was made for this," your body leaned forward, your voice grew stronger, your steps carried certainty. Correct thinking always precedes courageous action. The truth is, life doesn't reward potential. It rewards execution. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your thoughts keep you frozen, none of it will matter. You can have all the resources, but if your thinking is wrong, you won't use them. You can have every opportunity, but if you let fear dominate your mind, you'll let it pass by. Correct thinking unlocks the door to action. It gives you permission to step forward boldly, even when you don't feel ready, even when the path isn't clear, even when the odds seem stacked against you. And here's the paradox. Most people wait to feel confident before they act, but confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. Confidence is built by doing, and doing is driven by thinking correctly. If your mind says, "I'll wait until I feel ready," you'll be waiting forever. But if your mind says, "I'll act now and confidence will come as I grow," you'll move, you'll learn, you'll adapt, and you'll succeed. Correct thinking creates momentum, and momentum is the secret to achievement. Your actions are always a reflection of the story you tell yourself. If the story is weak, your actions will be weak. If the story is strong, your actions will be unstoppable. Someone who tells themselves, "I can't succeed, I've failed too many times, it's too late for me," will never act boldly. But someone who tells themselves, "Every failure is a lesson, my past is not my future, today is my chance," will act with fire even in the face of obstacles. Correct thinking doesn't just change your actions, it changes the energy behind your actions, and energy is everything. Think about how you move when you believe in yourself versus when you don't. When you think correctly, your posture changes, your tone changes, your decisions are decisive. You walk into the room with certainty, you speak with conviction, people feel it before you even open your mouth. Correct thinking creates a presence, and presence commands opportunities. Wrong thinking, on the other hand, creates hesitation. And hesitation kills dreams faster than failure ever will. Correct action is not about being perfect, it's about being aligned. When your thoughts are aligned with empowerment, your actions flow naturally. You don't have to force yourself to work hard, to pursue excellence, to push through resistance. You do it because it feels inevitable. It feels like the only option. Wrong thinking makes you fight against yourself. Correct thinking puts you in harmony with your highest potential. That's why it feels effortless once you get into the flow. But let's be clear, correct thinking does not remove fear. Fear will always be there. The difference is how you respond to it. Wrong thinking says, "Because I feel fear, I shouldn't act." Correct thinking says, "Because I feel fear, this is the exact moment to act." Fear becomes a signal to move, not to stop. And when you act in spite of fear, you train yourself to rise above it. Each time you do, you weaken its grip. Each time you choose courage, you build momentum. That is the pathway to living with power instead of paralysis. Action is the bridge between your inner world and your outer world. You can think the most empowering thoughts in the world, but if they don't translate into action, nothing changes. Correct thinking ensures that bridge is built strong. It means you stop living in the realm of someday and start living in the reality of today. You stop overthinking and start moving. You stop wishing and start doing. Correct thinking transforms intention into execution. When your actions are aligned with correct thinking, even small steps carry massive impact. You don't need to wait for the big breakthrough. You don't need to wait for perfect timing. Each small action compounds. Each step forward builds momentum. Each decision in the right direction creates new opportunities. And before you know it, the gap between where you were and where you wanted to be has been closed. Not because of one giant leap, but because of countless small, consistent steps driven by correct thinking. There will always be resistance. There will always be moments where it feels easier to delay, to hide, to wait for a better time. But correct thinking doesn't wait for conditions. It creates conditions. It doesn't hope for opportunity. It seizes opportunity. It doesn't wish for change. It acts on change. That's why people who think correctly seem unstoppable. They're not waiting for the perfect plan. They're acting on the plan they have and adjusting along the way. Correct thinking doesn't mean every action you take will succeed, but it means every action you take will move you closer to success. Even when you stumble, you learn. Even when you fail, you grow. Even when you fall, you rise with new strength. Wrong thinking says failure is final. Correct thinking says failure is feedback. And when you adopt that perspective, you stop fearing mistakes and start using them as fuel. That's how correct thinking sustains long-term action. Your future is not shaped by your wishes, your intentions, or even your goals. It is shaped by the actions you take every single day, and those actions are shaped by the thoughts you allow to dominate your mind. If you want a different future, you must start by thinking differently today. You must decide that correct thinking is non-negotiable, that empowering thoughts are the foundation of empowering action. And once you commit to that, nothing can stop you from creating the life you envision. Correct thinking creates clarity, clarity creates action, and action creates results. It's a chain reaction. The moment you master your mind, you master your behavior. The moment you master your behavior, you master your destiny. That is the power of correct thinking. It doesn't just stay in your head, it spills into your choices, your habits, your lifestyle, and ultimately your future.